Good afternoon, one and all. My name is Francoise Bowen, and I'm the host of this panel discussion. But before I begin my introduction, I'm going to have one of our tech team, distinguished past district director of Caribbean District 81, Fabiola Cleofa. She will read the disclaimer. I'm going to call her on to read the disclaimer at this time.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Good evening or good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasant day to you. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded for quality assurance, documentation, and educational purposes. The recording may be reviewed internally or used for training or and promotional content within the Toastmasters framework. If you have any concerns regarding the recording, you are welcome to keep your camera off or notify the meeting host privately. By remaining in the meeting, you are acknowledging and consenting to the recording. We appreciate your cooperation in
Thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Fabiola. We apologize. I just saw in the chat the voice is a bit fuzzy, but in essence, really what we are requesting, what we're letting everyone know is that what the disclaimer is saying, this discussion is recorded, and if you don't want to have your camera on in the discussion, you can take it off, okay? Because we know some persons don't want to be seen when the recording may go out. So if you want to keep your camera off, that is fine. Welcome to a wonderful, yet at the same time, sensitive, heavy discussion. Today's event is one that everyone that I have been speaking to, and even my current panelists, they too have received direct and indirect requests for a topic that some prefer not to speak about it. Some prefer, if you speak about it, just speak a little shoreline. Others, it is time for discussion to happen. My name is Francoise Bowen, and I'm the author of my new book, Stolen Innocence, A Tale of Survival and Triumph. Today's discussion, which is entitled How to Live Victoriously as a Champion Survivor. I was molested 4 times, which started from the age of 5 years old. 3 by a male and 1 by a female who was supposed to be my mom babysitter. From the age of 5 years old until my teens, the molestations definitely triggered and formed a character that made me question myself a lot, and also had my own family questioning me. I am happy to share as a survivor that in spite of all that has transpired to me, that I'm here today to help someone, even one soul, who was raped, molested, abused, received traumatic activities that definitely have some of us in a shell or have some of us in an unnecessary character. It happens. I will now begin the discussion, but first, before I begin the discussion, I would like to first introduce our panelists. And my Zoom tech team, they are going to bring a flyer up of the guest speakers, and I'll be reading their bio. So you have a good picture of who we have here. At the end of the panel discussion, you, the audience, will be given that moment to ask questions. Do not hold back your questions. The only thing we ask of you, please, do not call names, whether of the persons who did the crime or any of the survivors. You can ask the questions, you can make statements, but please refrain from calling the names. All right? And I will call on our very first guest. And our very first guest, I must say, traveled all the way from India. And our first guest is none other than Joyce Thomas. Joyce Thomas is from Mumbai, India. She's a social entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, NLP gestalt practitioner, public speaker, mentor, and coach. Impact and advocacy empowered over 2,000 women from the unorganized sector through upskilling, income generation, and leadership development. A passionate advocate for the advancement of women and children, especially in undeserved rural communities. Women entrepreneur mentor, mentor to emerging women entrepreneurs, offering strategic and emotional support. Supported FICCI FLO's participation in the Standard Seed Spark program for 2 consecutive years. Continues to mentor women through rural livelihood initiatives, helping them build sustainable home-based businesses. Notable collaborations, trained 749 women constables in partnership with the Chennai Police, improving their life skills and confidence. Revived hand smock embroidery at Little Flower Convent Home, turning traditional crafts into income during COVID. Her professional expertise, certified NLP and Gestalt practitioner, combining emotional intelligence with practical training. Known as a project curator and executive with a reputation for firefighting leadership and a never give up mindset. She's a respected teacher, youth mentor, and public speaker, known for quick thinking, creative problem solving, and value driven impact. Help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Joyce Thomas. Next, I have from the Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago, Crystal Forbes Thomas. Crystal Forbes Thomas is a counseling psychologist with specific training in the area of trauma and crisis from the island of Trinidad and Tobago. She has over 8 years working in the mental health field, She has dedicated her work to helping women heal in a holistic manner. As the founder of Casey's Transformation Center, her focus is on helping women manage and deal with stress, anxiety, depression, and unresolved traumas. She helps them to improve and create a healthy mental well being. She has been able to help women struggling with the effects of abuse and other past traumas to heal and grow. These women have been able to move past obstacles that were created by these traumatic events and are thriving in their field of influence. She has helped women to better understand the traumatic events, connect how those incidents have shaped the way they behave and think. Additionally, she helps women to change their false view of themselves to seeing who they truly are and to live that healed self. She has been able to make these differences through counseling, clients in her own organization, Casey's Transformation Center, Imagistic Counseling Services, and other governmental agencies in Trinidad and Tobago. Help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Crystal Forbes Thomas. Next, we have Yolanda Jeffrey Harris, Esquire. Yolanda Jeffrey Harris Esquire received her Juris Doctor from St. John's Law and following her admission to the New York State Bar, being employed as an attorney for the NYC Administration for Children's Services, where she represented court where allegations of abuse and neglect were adjudicated. Mrs. Yolanda specialized in cases of domestic violence and sexual abuse, trained and supervised other attorneys in the prosecution of abuse and neglect cases. She later joined the Office of the General Counsel as Executive Agency Counsel, where she was responsible for creating policies relating to the sharing of confidential records created by the agency, as well as serving on the Mayor's Task Force for the creation of privacy officers for all mayoral agencies. In 2021, Mrs. Yolanda joined the New York State Justice Center as Deputy General Counsel, where she is responsible for the supervision of the litigation unit. One, the Records Management Access Unit, ethics officer, a member of the committee that reviews the cases involving the most serious allegations of abuse or neglect. Help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Yolanda Jeffrey Harris, Esquire. Next, we have none other than Martina McDonald Johnson. Martina McDonald Johnson is a seasoned media and communication professional with over 25 years of experience spanning journalism, public relations, and strategic communications. She is the CEO of Integrated Marketing Communications, Inc., a leading consultancy that provides PR planning, media training, and communication strategy to clients across the Caribbean. Martina began her career as a journalist covering political and regional affairs and has since trained dozens of media professionals, led national campaigns, and advised brands through crisis communications and rebranding efforts. She is also a passionate advocate for ethical media practices, gender equality, and youth empowerment in media spaces. Help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Martina McDonald Johnson. From India, Mumbai, we have Riddhi Mehta, coder, early childhood and specialist educator, author in making and advocate. Riddhi Mehta is a passionate early childhood and special educator at the Stephen High School for the Deaf and Aphasic in Mumbai, India. A proud coder. What is it? Child of deaf adults. Riddhi has spent her life bridging two worlds, the hearing and the deaf. From a young age, she learned to translate not just words, but emotions, silences, and cultural nuances, becoming a vital communication link between her deaf parents and the hearing world around them. Though initially wanting to pursue fashion designing as a career, Riddy felt a strong calling that shifted her path from passion to purpose. Growing up witnessing the daily struggles and quiet strength of her parents, she was inspired to become an advocate for families like hers. Her forthcoming memoir, Untold Stories, is one of the first in India to explore the lives of coders, children born of deaf parents, who often grow up navigating dual identities, multiple languages, and unique in between existence. Through deeply personal narratives, the book sheds light on experiences that are really spoken about but profoundly lived. As both an insider and an educator, Reedy offers rare insight into the emotional, social, and cultural challenges coders face, particularly in India, where this identity is still largely unrecognized. Her advocacy work focuses on raising awareness, building support systems, and fostering inclusion within and beyond the deaf community. As a panelist, Riddy brings a voice shaped by compassion, cultural insight, and a deep determination to spark change. Her journey stands as a powerful testament to resilience, empathy, and the transformative strength of growing up as a coder. Help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Riddy Mehta. Next, now we go to the mail. Next, we have from Mumbai, India, Ranjit Movarasio. Ranjit is a dedicated educator, passionate advocate for inclusive education, and a mentor who believes in amplifying voices often unheard. With over 15 years of meaningful experiences, Ranjit currently serves as director of the Stephen High School for the Deaf and Aphasic, Mountfort Junior College, and Mountfort Care Early Intervention Center in Mumbai. Through these roles, he actively champions the cause of children with hearing impairments, embraces innovative educational strategies, and building environments that empower students to thrive beyond their limitations. Under Ranjit's leadership, the Stephen High School has made remarkable strides, pioneering the integration of AI in deaf education. He has established comprehensive early intervention programs, strengthened foundational learning through inclusive curriculum design, and led impactful community engagements that bridge school and society. These efforts have significantly boosted the school's academic performance, creative expression, holistic growth of students. Ranjit's thoughtful initiatives also include setting up a solar power at the school, significantly reducing its carbon footprint and reinforcing a strong message of sustainability for future generations. As a respected author and thought leader, Ranjit has represented India on international stages, notably at the Nobel Prize Teachers Summit in 2022 in Stockholm. His impactful publications include curriculum guides aligned with the National Education Policy, NEP 2020, and the National Curriculum Framework, NCF 2023, alongside a practical and influential book titled Counseling Skills for Hearing Care Professionals. Currently, Ranjit is mentoring Ridhi Mehta, supporting her in authoring a groundbreaking book on the experiences of CODA, children of deaf adults. This mentoring aligns closely with his mission to uplift underrepresented communities and nurture the next generation of advocates. Ranjit's personal and professional journey reflects genuine resilience, advocacy, and transformative leadership, making him a powerful and authentic voice in discussion on how to live victoriously as a champion survivor. His approach is deeply human, guided by empathy, innovation, and a profound belief that every story is not just a lesson, but a beacon of hope guiding others through their journeys. Please help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Ranjit Movarasio. Next, I have Mr. Robert Gibson. And let me just screen a bit my, okay. Robert Gibson is the owner of Passionate Words Editing Services, a lover of words from early teenage years. Robert started his writing career by performing his poetry on stage, from which people encouraged him to produce his first book. He has since gone on to self publish 7 books and then use his skills in self publishing to create an opportunity for other writers to have their books edited, formatted, and published, which is PWES, was officially started in 2020. Help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Robert Gibson. Next, we have Mr. Alpha Matthew. Mr. Alpha Matthew is a secondary, well, in the Caribbean, we say secondary, but is known as high school, is a secondary school teacher who believes in God, places us in careers to reach persons with the gospel as witnesses, letting our light shine for his glory. He is now studying to be a social worker, where he believes persons' lives can be changed at the individual and community levels. As a member of the evangelism team in his church, Alpha believes a career in social work could be amalgamated with evangelism to transform lives for the glory of God. He enjoys watching sports, following world events, reading books with a Christian genre, and fellowshipping with friends. Help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Mr. Alpha Matthew. Next, I have Mr. Tony Ratchet, and he is from Canada. Business consultant near Toronto, Canada, earned an LLB law degree from the University of London, past Toastmaster District 86 Governor 2013 to 2014, outgoing District 123 parliamentarian. 17 years he has been serving in Toastmasters. He is a senior vice president in the Royal Canadian Legion and father of 3 adult children. Please help me welcome to the virtual lectern, Mr. Tony Bashett. I'm just going to wait for my Zoom host to just share his flyer of his photo so everyone can see who he is. Mr. Tony Bashett. Next, I have, last but not least, Mr. Gordon Alex Finch. Mr. Gordon Alex Finch. He is from the origin of Antigua and Barbuda, Minister of Deliverance and Inner Healing, founder of the Freedom in Paradise International Ministry of Deliverance and Inner Healing. He owns a business, tour operator for over 25 years, owns and operates Gordon's multi-language Antigua and Barbuda tours taxi service. His hobbies: love sports, helping others, photography and videography. He's an indie filmmaker, singer, songwriter, and social media marketing. And he has provided his contact information, which you will see on the screen. And also at the end of this discussion, you can be able to reach out to any one of our panelists guests. Panelists, good day. How are you doing? Everyone is ready?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we.
are.
Yes, we are.
Good day.
Hello, everybody.
Wonderful.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to start with a question, and let's see if we can start with, I'm going to start with my story, as I mentioned about me. Now, here's a question. When a child gets molested or molested or raped from the age of 5 years old, how can a child express to an adult that someone touched them? How should they start? How should they say that? And I'm going to ask our traumatic expert to Crystal to answer that. And then I'm going to go to the lawyer, Yolanda. So I'm going to ask Crystal, how can a child speak? And then then when you're through, I'm going to then ask Yolanda, from her perspective, what what should be the way as well. So Crystal, go right ahead. Let me hear from you.
All right. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And in response to your question, first of all, I must say that as a parent or guardian, you have to have that relationship, that close relationship with that child. And the communication as well, it's supposed to be open between both of you. Um, how a child could express to you that they have been molested. Sometimes the child may not understand um, what has happened or what has occurred, but you as the individual, seeing that you would have already had that close relationship with that child, you should be able to see some signs. So if you know that child is very vocal at times, all the time, you know that when you interact with this child, when you speak with this child, they are very vocal. And all of a sudden, you realize now that you're interacting with this child, they are not as vocal as they would usually be. That could be a sign that there is some sort of molestation happening there. Sometimes you could also look at how the child is behaving in terms of their bodily reactions in situations. So if it is you realize a child is interacting with another child or with someone else, and you are seeing some sort of vulgarity occurring, then you as the adults on a separate occasion, you could, pull the child aside and start asking questions. I realized you was doing, and you could also model the action that the child was doing. And you could ask them, you could tell me a little more of where you learned this from and how this came about, what you was feeling at the time. And these things is where you could get to know that this child has been sexually molested. So in some areas in counseling, if it is you are concerned that based on the trend of the behavior, it keeps happening, then you can seek help from a play therapist, someone who is in the area of observing and getting out from the child through playing with the child in the therapeutic conditions to find out if this child is being abused sexually. Because most of the times, as I mentioned before, a 5-year-old may not be fully capable to verbally express to the parent or the guardian what has actually occurred. So I'm going to leave this point to the other panelists to continue on.
Thank you so much. Our lawyer, Yolanda Esquire. Let me hear your take.
Well, I could not have said it better than the previous panelists. Firstly, that depending on not only the age, but the social development and psychological development of that 5-year-old child, they have different abilities. One of the things that we know is that children don't know what the term sexual abuse or molestation means. They really don't. The term, when we in a legal setting, when by the time I'm involved, it's already been identified that this child was, based on everything that either the mother, whoever was the person who raised the alarm, saw, could have been a victim of molestation or child abuse or sexual abuse. In certain places, they have what they call child advocacy centers that has,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't know, that has experts responsible for interviewing these children. They're trained child psychologists. They're trained in looking for the signs. It's a team. It's a team. Now, this requires a lot of resources, as you would expect, right? And the children are forensically interviewed. They use anatomical dolls to get the child to identify what happened. Like, then they use the terms good touch and bad touch, to try to get the child to identify how they were touched. You usually can't find out when. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But that's usually how it's done. Of course, the worst cases is when there's actually physical. The worst cases for the children is when there's physical signs, or maybe not. Maybe it's the best case scenario, as bad as it is, that you're able to collect evidence of that molestation, finding, semen in a child of 5 is clearly a sign that this child was sexually abused. Sometimes parts of the body does show signs of abuse. Those are all evidence that's collected when you're going to present a case before a court to show that this child was sexually abused. And it ranges from what was done. Let's not forget the grooming process that starts, where you may not be able to see any physical signs, but if a child is showing you on an anatomical doll that an uncle or someone is constantly touching that part of their body, that's certainly evidence. So that's all I would add to what was already said. That's absolutely 100% accurate.
Wow. And I do agree with both of you, because my mom said to me that I was always a bubbly child. And she said that after picking me up from my dad's workplace and she left me in the bedroom to go and get something in the kitchen. And she said something told her, walk slowly to the bedroom door. And
Mhm.
when she walked slowly to the bedroom door, she said that the way how I was moving,
Mhm.
she said something happened. So she said she told my dad and said something happened to Francoise. Something happened to Francoise because they were very cautious that they're not going to be doing sexual activities in front of children. I mean, that is as an adult, although you have children, you should not be performing sex in front of your children. So they never did that. So they were trying to, something had happened. And so then when they did the, when my mom said, after confronting my dad to find what was happening, then he actually revealed to her what happened at his workplace, because there was a guest at the hotel who actually was the one who molested me. And what and how he did it was very much serious. And that is what the signs that she saw that something was wrong. I was speaking with a nurse, and the nurse was explaining to me that she was actually, as a nurse, you come across a lot of situations. And she was dealing with a parent brought a child to the clinic. And because the mother said something about the child, who was 3 years old, was not looking right when she was cleaning the child. And upon examining, they've then realized, per the nurse, I'm going to be exactly what use the word that the nurse said. She saw a hole. Obviously, when you see a hole, a child, obviously somebody has interfered with the child. And when they told the parents, then only investigating, had the police, everybody in, then to find out it was the child's grandmother boyfriend, which now leads to my question to back to you, Yolanda. And then after Yolanda, I'm going to go to Yolanda first, and then I'm gonna call on Martina Johnston, a journalist. So Yolanda, parents,
Yes.
this is a child, 3,
Yes.
and it was the grandmother boyfriend who had sex with that 3-year-old child. And the grandmother was standing up for the boyfriend and said, told the parents they had no right to take that child to any clinic because all she could have done was just put ointment.
Okay.
Tell
So,
me what parents should do when it comes to family.
well, now, I know that the laws are different in different places, but you have two types of laws that can apply to those situations in America, right? And not everywhere in America either. In different states, America's 50 different states, which are like 50 separate countries. They have their own laws. But in the state where I happen to reside, which is the state of New York, we have an administrative, which is what the Administration for Children's Services is. It's an administrative agency. It's not a criminal agency, right? It's not the DA's office. It's not the district attorney that prosecutes criminal cases. But in New York City, you have two agencies that can hold the grandmother and the perpetrator, the boyfriend, to account. One, the criminal route, which is there would be a criminal case. The parents would report him to the police. They would investigate. And if they find, which it sounds like there was clear evidence that the child was penetrated, is what it's the term that they would use. And if they can prove that he was the person that did it, he could be criminally charged, right? And prosecuted. He would be arrested and subsequently prosecuted for sexual assault of that minor child, which is against the law in any state in the union, right? That's one way to do it. The second way is that because when this happened, I'm assuming the child was in the care of the grandmother. So the grandmother was what you would call under the administrative law and the criminal law, the custodian. She was the custodian for the child. The parents entrusted her with the care of their precious little daughter, right? Grandmother, as a custodian, this is under the administrative law that when I worked for ACS, we would have used. The grandmother would be deemed a person legally responsible for that child. That is called, we like acronyms here, that would be called a PLR. She's the person legally responsible for that minor child. She would then, a case would be filed in family court, bringing the grandmother as the custodian, but also the boyfriend would be harder because you'd have to prove that he was acting as a person legally responsible for the child also. There's a test you'd have to use. Did he act as a parent? The caseworker that goes out to do that investigation would have to find out when that child was in the grandmother's home, how did he interact with her? Did he prepare meals for her? Did he supervise her when she was playing? Did he, in other words, did he do things that a parent would have done with that child? If you can prove that, then you could also name him as a PLR on the petition filed in the family court. And you could get, certain orders against him. And usually, let's say he was brought into family court and for some reason there had been no criminal prosecution, you would notify the district attorney's office. They would get notified about that and they would look into it.
Wow.
And that is the duality that exists within a place like the city of New York that has a lot of resources and has chosen to use some of those resources to protect, vulnerable children. This was not always the case. This legislation came about not too long ago, maybe, I want to say, starting in the 1970s, they started realizing that they had to do more to protect children. And then eventually in the 1990s, they created the New York City Administration for Children's Services. It had been called something else before that, but it didn't have as many robust protections for children as it does presently. So it is a huge undertaking And it requires a lot of resources to keep it going, but it is very necessary to safeguard the children. But those are the two ways that that would be prosecuted. And the grandmother, let's say, in the criminal side, if they felt she was trying to obstruct the investigation, let's say they're trying to investigate what the boyfriend did, and she's, like her telling the parents that they had no right to, say anything or
Yeah.
ask any questions, that could be considered obstruction of an investigation. And they could charge her there also in the criminal court if they really wanted to. And she would have to get a lawyer and she would have to
Oh,
fight it because, you could, she is behaving in a way that certainly is contrary to the well-being of that child that was left in her care that she was
hmm,
responsible for.
okay.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
There are other things that you can do. But those
Okay.
are the two tracks you can go down in a state like New York and in a
Mm-hmm.
city like New York City that has
Mm-hmm.
kind of resources and that have chosen to use it to do that. That is not the case in every state in the United States.
Okay. So I'm going to bring on Martina Johnson because she's a journalist, a Caribbean journalist. And then listen,
Mhm,
because listening what you're saying, okay, in the New York state, and it obviously doesn't apply, every state have this own law as well. I want
mhm.
to hear from Martina Johnson, from from covering stories like these. What
Yes.
is normally the situation that happened? Because I know in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago, they have a family court, and also
Mhm.
in Barbados as well, too, they have a family court. So I would love for Martina Johnson to come on the virtual stage and let's hear from her perspective what she has witnessed so far in her journalism. Martina, how are you?
I'm great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So, Francois, one of the things that is common throughout the Caribbean when it comes to sexual offenses or sexual violence and abuse against children, particularly girl children, and I'll single out girls first, is that as long as they're teenagers, there is usually that question on whether they're telling the truth. There's usually that question of their integrity. There's usually that question from their own family members. Are you sure this could have not been the case? Uncle this wouldn't do that, or your stepdad wouldn't do that. And because of many occasions, they're living in homes where the mother is totally dependent or significantly dependent on the person who perpetrated it, it becomes more of a question of survival for that family. And they wish to see, or they question it so much, hoping that they would see something different or hear something different from that child. It's a lie. Oh, I exaggerated the story, because they want to stay in their comfort zone. The other thing that is very prevalent in the region is denial or victim blaming. So many times the persons who receive the reports from the children are in denial that it could happen or that it happened. Not, nope, not my husband, not my boyfriend, nope, not your cousin, no, not your uncle. That's not possible. That can't, he's so nice to you, he takes you to school. Or if it happens to a boy, no, they assume that the person who committed the act is a homosexual. And it's like, oh no, he's not gay. Oh no, he would never do that. Oh, he's not into boys. And so that issue of denial and the issue also of shame as a family, on how do you deal with that. And I can speak from my own personal perspective. At 16 years old, when a family member attempted to rape me, and I brought it to my mother's attention at the time, she was working in law enforcement. And she said, you can't tell anybody that. That's family shame. Those were her words. And she was like, well, you're lucky you weren't raped. So the fact that I went through that trauma, even though I hadn't been raped, I still experienced the trauma of the attack and
What?
fighting to ensure that it did not happen. But what is even further is, at the time she was working in law enforcement as a constable, and when you go to the law enforcement and they say that's family shame, stay quiet. Like, who else do you go to? Where else do you turn? And so, this is the situation with many families, even though their moms or dads may not be working in law enforcement, they cover it up as family shame because who wants to tell the public that their dad molested them or their uncle or a cousin? It becomes an issue of it's not just your daughter, but it's your daughter and your nephew. It's a family thing now. And or it's your son and your boyfriend, which is your son's stepdad. So those are some of the challenges that you look at. And then last but not least, you have the situation where mothers blame their daughters, saying, "Oh, that's why I tell you don't walk around the house in short pants. Man got feelings, and if you're giving him things to look at, he's going to look. If you weren't wearing short skirts, he wouldn't touch you." Or they'd ask you, "What were you wearing when it happened?" And they make the victim feel as though they caused it on their own. My exposure to this would have been not just in Antigua, but also in Guyana, but more in Antigua, where there was in several years in a row a serious issue of girls running away from home. And then when they're picked up off the streets, you're hearing the stories of why and their parents or their guardians not believing them. I'm sure, Frances, you remember the story of girls being thrown into prison in Antigua because they had nowhere for them and they couldn't send them back to their homes. And they were there for several months until the then Chief Magistrate, Joan Walsh, um, worked out an arrangement with private citizens to set up a home to facilitate them. One of the homes was called the Mustard Seed Home. But when you listen to these girls' stories, one, they were raising siblings, so they were exposed to motherhood. Two, they were molested by people well known to their families or who were also family members. And three, when they spoke up, they were not believed, or the people who believed them were still uncomfortable with going public or going to the police about the situation because it would have disrupted their lives. So that has been my experience working on the issue of violence and sexual abuse against children in the region.
This is so pathetic. I'm really sorry because how is it that as a child or you're reporting that this happened, that a parent or guardian going to say it's family shame? Like, come on, this is something that really happened. And then this is why a lot of us know as adults, we become adults and then we don't, they call us, oh, you're crazy because I've been called it a lot. Oh, you're crazy and this and that. I find this is so ridiculous. I'm trying to really control my emotions, but this thing really upset me a lot because I can't
But then
understand.
remember,
Mhm.
if I may add, there's also little apathy or little sympathy from the public too, because just yesterday I was having a conversation with someone who talked about a relative being pregnant at the age of 15, and then someone on the sidelines turned and said, "You think it's no she got mad? She been doing this using a bad word, the F word. She's been doing this since she was 2." I mean, she was molested at 2. She wasn't having consensual sex at 2. She was molested. So how is it that you're going to criticize a teenager for being molested at 2 and also saying, "Oh, it's not now she started as a teenager. She's been doing this so long." She is not of age to give consent at no point in this story of her life, but that is something that society does. It blames the victims, and we have to work hard as media practitioners, professionals, lawyers, court officials, child protection services. We have to work to bring that level of awareness and education so that people are more sympathetic, empathetic, and understanding in these situations, and they will take action where necessary.
This, you know, then sometimes I wonder why some persons decide to do the extreme. When you speak to prostitutes, you think they want to become a prostitute? No. When you talk to them, they let you know They were raped, molested, the whole works. Exactly these examples of what you said. Spoke to somebody, told in confidence, this and that, and they were never believed. They were shut down. And then we see the whole world about them, which is so disgusting.
And
And
then you
this,
have the issue of first responders too, how first responders treat these situations when they're actually reported. I did handle a case of a teenager in Antigua where I was the one who reported the matter to the police. And I had to be chasing the police down. When we got the medical done, it was like 4 hours after I made the report. We were just sitting there at the police station. And 4 hours into it, they're like, okay, now let's go to Mount St. John's, which is now the Lester Bird Medical Center, and do a rape kit. And when we went to do the rape kit, the approach was go in the room and take off your clothes. Um, yeah, pull down everything. Very rough and not caring in their words and not reassuring, explaining, like, this is the first step. This is what we're going to do. You may feel uncomfortable. You can ask us to stop at any time. We can resume. There are certain steps to ensure that the victim or the survivor feels comfortable and willing. And many times, that first responder approach is so atrocious that by the time the case gets to court, it takes very long, 3 to 4 years later. There is so much repeat of trauma that the person no longer wants to testify. And so perpetrators end up walking free, only to redo what they've done to someone else.
you know, let me contain my emotions. Let me contain my emotions. I'm gonna call on Joycey, Riddy, and I'm gonna try and control my emotions because I just find it so ridiculous. Because I'm gonna call on Joycey Thomas. Could Joycey Thomas? You dealt with a lot of women, and you've like I guess you counted 750 plus women. When you're dealing with women who have, who have who you've come across that were molested and raped, and they're seeking help. Tell me exactly on your neck of the woods in India, how what programs are in place to help them, and also how do they return back into society to to be normal or regular.
Uh, Thank you for having me. Now, this is a very, very sensitive topic for me. Sometimes when people say, oh, you can't get angry, if you're not a subject matter expert, emotions come out in different ways. This is something back in India we will not talk in the open. But I would like to place on record there are certain things which is very confidential, and I'm sure in this panel we will use our good sense to be sensitive about how we share information. What I like of late that's happening in India is we have a robust and absolutely amazing, especially from the southern part, overall India, it is happening. And we have something called as the CWC, Crimes Against Women and Children. There are police stations which are only for women, women police. Everything is taken care of. When I heard all the specialists speak here, with all due respect, I wish I wanted to become a lawyer. I don't know how I missed that. Law is right at the end of it. I have a question, a clarification. How many of us have thought things happen much before? We go to a lawyer, go to the cops, go to the police station very, very late, 9 out of 10. In my humble opinion and my experience, I've always seen the affluent will probably hide it and say hush. Like all the specialists and the panelists were saying, culturally, we will never use the three-letter word. In India, if you say that, and you also spoke about how you dress, this way, people will look at you. We battle that. And I'm sure we think It's only in India, but it happens across the world, everywhere. I have seen a lot of things which I probably will not be okay with sharing here because we have very clear directives that we don't even share about it, especially if it's below 18, where we call it as the POXO Act, Prevention of Sexual Abuse. So we don't bring it out. In fact, I know in Chennai, even the journalists are not allowed to take photographs of children if they're in a situation and to publish it, which I do truly respect that. I'm not even going to talk about what comes out. Women, we know. We know the minute it happens. The minute we see children, I have seen it. I've seen it happen to several of my cousins. How many of us have openly come out and had the courage to say? If I was to ask here, how many of us will even do it? Now, when this discussion is happening, it's a lump in my throat. I don't know. I can only thank my father that he trained me well. He always taught me to speak up. I'm not everybody's favorite because I would just spill the beans. My dad was in the army, and I grew up in a joint family. He always said, name and shame. No matter what happened, he said, you have a voice, yell out, call out. People will do anything, whether you can speak or not. I thought he was cruel when he made me walk alone in the street, but he would say, go zigzag, watch if there's a shadow behind you, have a stone in your hand. How many daddies have the time to do that today? I had a great grandmom who knew the way we walked back from school to find out if something was wrong. There are two sides to India. Some of us people feel very shy. Even if I look at my daughter now dressed a little differently, I feel shy. Now, that doesn't make her a bad person. I can tell you the police is very aware, they know what to do. But how much do we tell? So I would never look at a lawyer or a police. I would only ask, what do we do, men and women? How many of us have the courage to even talk about it when it happens? Can the child come and tell us? After that comes the cops, then the uncle, the aunties, the lawyers, because that is like beating a dead fish. And I seriously think don't even talk about they didn't do it. I always ask people when I see a child or I find something, they always deny. They always say, oh, no, no, no. Everything seems to be something wrong for you. We know the minute it happens. I know when I see somebody that something has happened. Have people tried that with me? You bet. You bet. And you don't even want to go there because that is where your aggression will come in. I never thought I was going to talk about it, but this is like waking up somebody. I don't know how much time I have. Francois opened up something, mixed emotions. I I don't know. I've tried to protect people. I've gone and fought for people. People haven't treated me very nicely for that. They've always felt like I'm instigating. I'm putting things in their mind. I have my dear friend Sandra here, who probably knows how I speak. There are two sides to me. So many people will know, and everybody watching here, you can ask yourself. There have been situations. In this is not a panel discussion. This is an internalization. Ask yourself, have you been watchful? I'm 65 soon, but I still remember what I saw when I was all of 5, 6, 7. I remember it's like a visual image. It's a movie playing in my head. And I know how I treat people, those people, when I see them, without mentioning names. I will say that I came with a very protective family, probably, but there some things could have happened. I will definitely say my dad and mom made sure that they took care of things. It's our responsibility before we just push it off to somebody else. But voicing that, today I'm like an advocate. If I see things, I will speak up. I will go make sure I finish that job. The loop will be closed. People hate me, and that's one side they don't see. So, as individuals, I think that's important. Francois, you asked me about the police. Police are like you and me. They have situations too. I have met many who can't even talk, who can't say things, wonderful souls. I can say a lot more than what a legal
The
ad.
lawyer had said.
We can say a lot more. I can fight for somebody. I can be scot free, but when they are within a legal system, they have something that they have to work within. So I do empathize with them. It is important how quickly we seek support. And I'm with everybody who said we always say the fault is on us. We try to cover it up. We delay things. And if somebody speaks, then you're the horrible woman. You give them titles, men and women. There are men also who stand up for many such cases. I will never say this is only a man. It's nothing to do with gender. This abuse happens and we have to be aware. So I'm not going to directly answer your question as to what do the cops do, but I have
Well,
seen.
that's fine. I mean, that is fine because we still want to protect. If it's one thing, our police officers they do the best they can do the resources as well that they have. We want to give them kudos for that. So we're not going to be, um, shredding, shredding the details. But it's something that you said because I'm going to call on Brother Gordon Finch. But before something you said, I'm going to call on him. But before I call on him, Riddhi and Ranjit, who are in India, they're they are in this unique, very, very unique. And why I say unique? Because the lawyer Yolanda Esquire mentioned something, and also at the same time to Martina Johnson also, and the traumatic expert. And the question that I have for Radhi and Ranjit, children born with deaf parents. First, I want you to let us know who is CODA. And then after letting us know who is CODA, the question that follows is, if a child who have parents that are deaf and this situation had happened to them, from your observation in your field, help guide us on what we should do or need to do. You can start. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I very much agree with the previous panelists, what they spoke, and some of it or or most of it is true for our situation as well. As the person who is heading the institution for the persons with hearing disability, I wish to put forth very specific things. Back in, while I was preparing for the session for this event, I thought it may not be relevant to Western world or Canada or America. I thought it must be relevant only to India. It is told that 95% of the children's abuse happens in known environment or at home. Home is where the hurt is. So majority of the time, and some of the panelists and all of you mentioned that the people who harm our uncle, aunt, or grandmother's boyfriend, people who live close by. So therefore, there should be an awareness among the parents and teachers that this can happen, especially if they are deaf children. We have to notice, has the behavior changed? I'm sure Riddhi will come and talk little later how she teaches good touch and bad touch in the classroom. But I think this is what we do. What we do is we in our institution we create awareness about the children being abused, and we kind of make aware the teachers how they can enable. So if 95 percentage of the abuse happens in at home situations, so as a parent, as a caregiver, we are supposed to take care of them. So even as a special educator, we look for signs the children may not come and report. For a child, it's a pain. The child falls, experiences pain. The child is sexually abused or it experiences pain. There is not much difference. So it is us who, as educators or parents or caregivers, are need to spot that and then report earliest. So I just leave it. That's my point. So my point is 95 percentage of abuses happen at home. So we need to be vigilant. So I over to Riddhi to
Really,
talk
yes.
about how she handles in the
Mm-hmm.
classroom.
Correct. Go ahead, Riddhi.
Hello, everyone. Oh, I really have goosebumps listening to all of the experiences, and I'm really happy to be a part of this event. I would like to begin by sharing my own experiences. I didn't have words back then, only fear and the vivid memory of getting down midway from a bus to escape from someone who wouldn't stop touching me. My name is Riddhi, a special educator and a coder, a child of deaf adults. Today, I am speaking for every deaf child who didn't have the courage to speak up. This topic, sexual harassment, is deeply personal to me too. I wish it wasn't, but these memories have stayed with me since childhood, shaping who I am today. I still clearly remember the afternoon when I was about 12 years old, traveling back home from school on a local bus in Mumbai. The bus was nearly empty, just 3, 4 passengers scattered around. A man sat down beside me. When he sat down next to me, I felt his hand running around my legs. I felt his hand sliding down into my tunic. My heart raced in panic. I shifted my leg away, but he persisted. I quickly stood up, changed my seat. Once, twice, 3 times, and each time he followed. My head was down, my eyes filled with tears. I was too afraid to even glance up at his face. Overwhelmed and terrified, I managed to get down the bus midway through my journey. Standing alone on the street, tears rolled down my cheeks. I felt extremely helpless and confused. I did not tell that to anybody. I went home, pretending nothing had happened. But something inside me had changed. The way I saw people, the way I trusted the world. Silence became a part of me. How could I tell my parents about this? My parents are deaf, gentle souls who communicate with signs. As a coda, I spoke 2 languages, one with my hands, one with my voice. But at that moment, I felt speechless in both. How do you explain shame in sign when you barely even understand it yourself? I feared they might not fully understand or might react in ways that would deepen my pain. So I wiped my tears, boarded the next bus, went home, and locked myself in the room for hours, quietly carrying the trauma. For years, I have kept quiet. I didn't find the courage to speak about this openly. Sharing it now is still difficult. It brings back the fear, the shame, and the silence. But it also feels incredibly freeing. Just yesterday, during a conversation with my boss, who's right here, Brother Ranjit, he asked me, "What would you do if this happens to you now?" I didn't hesitate. I said, I would speak up loudly. I would protect myself without shame. I wouldn't let that silence take over again. Today, as a special educator, as an early childhood teacher, I take these painful experiences and channel them into strength. I teach my young students about good touch and bad touch through dolls, making sure they know how to speak up or communicate their fears, even if they are deaf, differently abled, or very young. For every child deserves the tools to protect themselves and give the confidence to use them. Listening to each one's stories today, I realize how connected we are, and this issue isn't just mine or limited to my society, it's global. Back then, I didn't have words, but today I do. And I will keep using them for every child who's still afraid to speak. Thank you.
It is not your fault, okay? It's something I always tell everybody. It's not your fault. There are too many times when we believe it's our fault. We, we dress appropriately. You
In
sitting
fact,
down, you're sitting down on the bus. You were just sitting down on the bus.
even today, I thought of planning for this event and making cue cards, getting them printed. But I didn't have the courage to ask my brother to get them printed because I had the fear that he'll read it.
Yeah. You're brave and you will be rewarded for what you're doing. You will.
I'm thankful for being given this opportunity to present, to attend this meet. I thought I will not include this in my memoir, in my upcoming memoir, but I will definitely do that.
Do. Please do. Please do. Thank you so much. I'm going to call back on Ranjit.
Yes. Just a point that I wish to make. Continuation of what we were speaking. If it is okay, a very short point. In 2007, in India, a nationwide survey was done by Ministry of Women and Child Development, which Jyoti was talking about. It was estimated that around 54% of Indian children were sexually assaulted. What is reported is 54%. What is alarming for me to know is that among that 53% are boys and only 47% of girls. In India, we think it is the women who are abused more. But when I did a study after your invite, I learned that it is even the boys. In fact, the boys are abused more. So it is important as educators, as caregivers, it is important that we become aware of the situation that is there in the current situation. Then we can report, then we can be more compassionate. Otherwise, we think, oh, the boys are always safe. We need to only guard the woman. We need to only guard girl children. No, it is not. We need to guard every child, every children born. So the statistics in India doesn't show that women are abused more. It's the boys. The little boys are abused more. Thank you to everyone for giving us, both Riddhi and me, this opportunity to share our thoughts. and we are really very glad. And we are working on a book. Koda, Sandra, and Jyoti. These people are helping us, supporting us. Thank you for this platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to call. I see Tony. Tony is one of our guests as well. Tony has his hand up. Tony, after you finish, I'm going to call on Gordon Finch, because he have an interesting story, and he's also going to speak on the spiritual side. But he's going to speak first about his from a mm, boy perspective, and what. So I'm going to go to you, Tony, because the question that I have for you before you mention your question that you want to ask is from a from a business perspective, and being around adults, and handling how should a company handle sexual assault when it happens on the workspace. So I wanted to just bear that question in mind, before when it's to answer after you have raised your question. Is Tony there?
Okay, so I go next. Okay.
Yes.
I cannot speak as a survivor. I like to address the same topic, however, from a regulatory point of view. Our fellow panelists, like Yolanda, the lawyer. Yolanda, you spoke about administrative law in New York City. And another fellow panelist, I believe Martina, I believe you talked about the apathy that the public will have. So I like to I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. I like to talk about what can be done in a society. Now, back in year 2000, the United Nations passed a declaration. It was called the Millennium Declaration. And it stated that much of the agenda of the human race is dealing with harms insufficiently controlled. Now, those are three words. They're words. Harms insufficiently controlled. So here, from the very beginning of this discussion, we've talked about harms, real harm, how people's lives have been harmed from the very beginning, or just by getting on a bus, like we just heard from from Riddy. It can happen to any of us in any time, and we feel the pain. We see the pain in your face. We hear it in your voice. And yourself, Francois, talking about being a survivor from an early age, how it can affect people throughout their lives. Now, this has a cost to society. Society has to support the survivors. So the issue now for society is, what's more important? Government, half of what government does is protect us, no matter where we live, from harm. The other half, they legislate laws. And the half I'm talking about is to protect us from harms. Now, the same United Nations Millennium Declaration listed all the harms that the human race has to deal with that are insufficiently controlled. And child abuse is on that list, along with terrorism, war, nuclear threats, many, many, many things. We know the list goes on and on and on. So how do we, get society to put strategic importance to this issue? And there is a way. There is a way. Okay, there is a clear line of sight to do it. It's extremely difficult, but there is a clear line of sight. So, you could say, well, I have to walk across this desert, swim across the ocean, climb those mountains to get there. Yes, it's difficult, but there is a way. And the way to do it, well, depending on what society we're in a common law society, is through the regulatory procedures. I'm going to hitchhike a bit on what Yolanda, our lawyer panelist from New York City, talked about, how it's administrative. The thing is, we get into this, we cannot let go. Once we establish how much harm was caused to us, to you as survivors, and the measure of the value to society, the cost to society, is significant, then we'll get more attention. But with such a list of harms produced, by the United Nations Millennium Declaration, how do we elevate the importance of the abuse of children? Now, I suggest the following. One is, of course, it's reprehensible for someone, a person of a toxic narcissism, toxic narcissism. That's somebody who treats people as an object. They're charming, they're personable, but they are toxic narcissist. Now, I'm using an expression from, it's a common expression. I'll refer to a well-known book written by Robert Greene, The Laws of Human Nature. It's well-renowned. Okay. They're not going to change, those people. So they have to be controlled. They have to be punished. Regulatory law can do that if we as another panelist said, be aware of, make society aware. Now, next step. The Harvard School of Health last year produced a study on the quality of life, the price of life. They actually came up with, it's an academic, scholarly study, but it's a valiant attempt to put a value to the harm caused with such abuse. And it's called I'm just thinking, the value per statistical life. It's a harsh phrase, the value of statistical life. So imagine a child is abused at the age of 3, and that trauma lives with that child all his or her life. That's a heavy cost to society. But now we have scholarly studies that can put a dollar amount to it. It sounds very, cold, but it's something that makes sense to the lawmakers and to the people who enforce the regulations. That if that cost is so high to society, and the purpose of half of the government's role is to protect us, but they have limited resources and they have to prioritize strategically what is more important. We show through the value of statistical life, the cost of abuse to people is so high that it is worth society's efforts to apply the resources. Because we heard earlier from another panelist that there's a great apathy, with enforcement people, because it's just not up there. We make it up there. And as one of our previous panelists said, we become aware, we make it aware, and we stick with it. Now, another panelist mentioned of a case that's gone on for 4 years. I'm on a case that's finally going to trial. It's about abuse, not sexual abuse, but abuse due to an imbalance of power caused by toxic narcissist. That's going to take place in January. 15 years of litigation, nonstop, no breaks, 15 years of getting there. But they know we're coming. I'm part of the people enforcing it. We're getting there. And once we establish the damages caused to human beings, it becomes law. So I'm giving you an unemotional, cold-blooded analysis, but a clear line of sight of what we can do about it. We put a value. Yes, we accept you. We are aware of the value to society that the harm caused to survivors from sexual abuse to children or people on the bus or people walking down the street. We put a high value to it. We stick with it, as Dorothy Thomas said. You stick with it to the end. Don't. And eventually, we're going to get there. We're going to walk across those deserts together, swim across those oceans, climb those mountains. But we'll get there. This here, what's happening, is a good sign of our commitment from, hey, we're from all over the world, India, Canada, the Caribbean. So I conclude, there is a clear line of sight. We've got to keep on doing what we're doing here. Raise the awareness, put the value to it, get society to act upon it, and it'll get better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you. If I may, if I can just jump in for a moment.
Sure, go right ahead, Yolanda.
What Tony just said is absolutely the way to raise the awareness, and then you move from heightened awareness to proposing legislation and putting in programs and protections, programs with protections for survivors. And also, of course, there has to be a prevention element to it, which has to do with educating children early on about what's allowed, what's good and what's bad, the good and bad touches. Before we get to that, children has to be taught to say no. I have, if I can just share one small anecdote, I have a 5-year-old niece who, most adults, when they see their little relative, wants to hug them and give them a kiss and, oh, Auntie, so happy to see you. She was here with me, but then we had a family gathering to observe Juneteenth, and I went to hug her, and she said, and I went to give her a kiss. She said, no, Auntie, I don't want you to kiss me. And I said, oh, okay. I said, okay, no problem. And I didn't ask her why. She doesn't have to give me an explanation. I said, that's very good. I'm glad you're setting limits about how, no, you don't have to let anyone touch you. She says, I know that. My mommy told me that. My daddy told me that. And I was so happy to hear that because doing the work that I've done, I know how critical that is. So, education at home and in the, extended family is a big help to children, letting children know and not allowing adults to just casually touch children. It shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be permitted. And I'm glad that she put the brakes on, at age 5. I'm very pleased about that. I just wanted
If I
to
may
share.
add, thank you, Yolanda. If I may add, Frances, when Tony talked about the awareness and the regulatory position the regulations that have to be put in place, I wanted to highlight that when I spoke earlier about awareness, we need to just go deeper than wide awareness, but we need to have targeted awareness. Now, some people may not be very familiar with the jury pool process and how the selection happens, but there are a number of sectors that we generally turn to when we're looking for jurors, the banks, and so on. So the public education needs to be targeted. And I say this because I do recall in Antigua and Barbuda in the year 2012, there was a case of statutory rape, as we would call it in some countries in the region, where the girl is under the age of consent and someone engaged in a sexual activity with her. In this case, the young lady was 14 years old. And the jurors came back with a unanimous verdict that the gentleman who admitted on the stand that he had sex with the 14-year-old girl, although the age of consent is 16, they returned with a unanimous not guilty verdict.
What?
Because the guy said her mother knew I was her boyfriend. Her mother knew that we were having sex and she did not have a problem with it. What people need to understand is, regardless of the culture of the people, whether it's Hindu or Muslim or Hispanic, whether regardless of religious or other cultural reasons for allowing this sexual activity to happen with someone under the age, consent is not transferable. I can't consent for you. You cannot consent for me. And so the education has to be much more targeted and it must be heightened because as we create the regulatory systems or the laws, we also have to bring awareness to the groups that are affected, including the police officers, including the first responders to reports of these incidents, including potential jury pools when we know who, those groups are, we know the specific groups that are chosen. So we need to be more uh, direct, more strategic, and we need to have long-term planning for the awareness because we can't just do it today. And because we see a change 2 weeks from now, 2 years from now, we stop. It has to be sustained or else we will find ourselves backsliding and facing the same issues 10 years from now that we face today.
Okay. Okay. We were supposed to start our Q&A. We went right into it. I'm going to call on the teacher, Mr. Matthew. I see Angela Brown, her hand is raised. Keep your hand raised, Angela, because I know you have your question. Keep your hand raised. Don't worry. We went into a Q&A. But I just want to make sure you said something. I need to bring our teacher, Mr. Matthew. You deal with young people. You've been teaching for quite a number of years. Young children that are sexually active so early, you are seeing obviously firsthand what these children are displaying at school. Can you guide us as the audience? Because some of us are parents, some of us, we are aunts, uncles. Guide us as parents, now just hearing what a journalist Martinez spoke about, what the court did, 14 and who the gentleman is, his age, and then brought it as not guilty. Can you advise us and help us how we are to handle and teach our young girls and our young boys about one, sexual purity, and two, what signs do you see as a teacher when you recognize someone might have been, face a traumatic event? Over to you, Mr. Matthew.
It's a pleasant good afternoon to each and everyone. Yes, this is a rather pervasive issue within the classroom. And what we notice as teachers, well, first of all, we are mandated by law to report these cases either to the principal or the school counselor. Not so much our colleagues, but either the principal or the school's counselor. And these issues are it can be very, very, very insidious. Sometimes you are noticing a child, for instance, you notice a child that's usually the life of the party, class clown, maybe very energetic, very flamboyant. And that child, all of a sudden, they become quite withdrawn. They're in a shell. And the other end of the spectrum as well, you may notice a child who is very, he or she comes across as very shy, very quiet. You notice that all of a sudden the child is very aggressive, very short patient and that child becomes a bully. there's little patience. Even among their friends, they become very insulting, very rude. The friends no longer want to be around them. You notice a drop in grades. That student may have been an A student, and then there's C's and there's D's. There's C's and D's. Another thing you notice, certain subject matters, like within the content, if you're an English teacher or your social studies teacher, the writing becomes very graphic for someone that age. The writing is sexually charged. I mean, a lot of sexual stuff, sexual instances and events become a part of their writing. This would raise an alarm. And so we have to be very observant, because what the child tries to do in an attempt to shield, I call these people predators, to shield the predator, because their lives may be threatened, is that the child would try their best to mask the behavior, to mask what they really feel. But as a teacher, it's like we have to be professional, but although we are professionals, we still have to be empathetic. There's a balance that we have to strike. We are not supposed to, let me say, lack of a better term, we're not supposed to ask the child their business or try to look like we don't want to appear as being nosy, but we still have to use a lot of tact in finding out why is the child behaving like this. You have to be very, very subtle in your approach without actually asking them what really happened. So what about your friends? I noticed that you're not getting along with them as much. There's a sort of, you are very withdrawn. Is everything okay? How are you feeling? And little by little, as you earn the trust of the child, they will open up to you. They just have to trust you. And even as a professional, you have to know who to tell, because not everybody that's a colleague is trustworthy. So even as a teacher, it's not recommended that we tell our colleagues. We may have to tell the principal, we tell the professional counselor, because then we are not professionals within that particular field of work. So we may have to reach out to the counselor and let the counselor know, this is what I'm noticing. There's a drop in grades with this child, such and such. The counselor wouldn't be able to tell me anything, will be able to tell me much, because they have to be confidential as a professional as well. But they may schedule a meeting with the child to find out why is it the child is behaving this way. Social workers may have to get involved. Police officers may have to get involved. The mother might have to be called in. The father may have to be called in, because there are instances with older women who sexually assault young boys too. So it all depends. It's not just a mass, it's perpetrated mostly by men, but there are instances with older women. But because it's a boy, it's seen as stereotypically something that they're proud of, so to speak. But at the end of it all, it affects them in a very subtle way. So it all depends. The parent is called in. The parent who is the responsible parent may be called in. Other stakeholders may have to get involved, but the teacher would have to use their discretion, and they would have to use tact in dealing with the situation. But it's very, very subtle. It can be very insidious, but the things that we notice, the child may become very withdrawn, they become very aggressive, and there's a drop in grades. That's the biggest thing. The child, and they become very apathetic, disinterested in extracurricular activities. They used to participate in sports. They're no longer interested in sports. They're no longer interested in debate, and they're no longer interested in extracurricular activities. So these are some of the things that we notice even as teachers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthew. And you mentioned something that I wanted to go, where I wanted to bring in Mr. Gordon Finch, and then also I have Robert as well, who is a book author. For Mr. Gordon, your situation, you have a testimony yourself, is very unique. And our teacher, Mr. Matthew, mentioned it with regards to older women. I'd love for you to let the audience know what transpired with you from a little boy, how and if it had shaped or in some way impacted you, that it made you started to make certain decisions like, you know what, this is what I don't want going forward, or things like that. So I'm going to call into the virtual lectern to give your story, what transpired, and then I'm going to call on Mr. Robert because there was something posted in the chat, and I'm going to want to expound a little bit more on that. It's now 5:42, so I'm very mindful of the time. I know we are learning. It's a heavy topic, but at the end of it all, each and every one of us are taking things that we can take back to our community. We're 18 minutes before the six o'clock hour. Go right ahead, Mr. Gordon.
All right. Thank you very much. Oh boy. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Francois. I did not expect this. This is incredible. Oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Like say, as I heard some testimonies, you know what I mean? I started to cry, you know what I mean? And my heart started to beat because, oh my gosh, this is serious. Okay. First of all, oh boy. But Father God guide me. Okay. As a young boy, I was molested by two males. One was a family member of mine, and so I had no idea what was going on, you know what I mean? And so that happened one time with the family member, and then and the next time was a boy just a little older than me, who was not my family member, you know what I mean? So it happened to me then. And so I really didn't know what was going on, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, simple, I just didn't know. Then when I was about, oh boy, maybe about maybe 10, 11, my mother had a friend who would come to Antigua for carnival, correct? And she would stay by us. And so, of course, this was during the summertime, and I was at home, and then my mother would go to work, you know what I mean? And this friend um was there with me, you know what I mean? And she attacked me, you know? And I was wondering what exactly was going on. And so she, okay, then she didn't molest me, you know what I mean? But she was very, you know what I mean? She was very, like, say, aggressive, right? And I thought that she was, no, no, mind you, no, I thought that she was playing a game, right? I thought that she was playing a game. But anyway, so then nothing really happened. But during a particular year, right? She was very aggressive towards me, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And she would do certain things, but she would make it look as if she was, you know what I mean, just you know what I mean, playing games, right? You know what I mean? But I didn't really understand exactly what was happening. And I remember a particular situation where one Saturday my mother was washing in the backyard, correct? And this lady was I like say the home we were at, our door to the backyard had two sections, you know, the bottom section and the top section. I mean, so she could open the top section, I mean, and she would, you know what I mean, and she could lean on the bottom section, I mean, and just look outside. So I wanted to pass and go outside, right? And so I was trying to pass, right? You know what I mean? And so her bum was at the back, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So she was leaning on the door, and I tried to pass, and she pushed her bum arm against me, you know what I mean? And she trapped me, right? You know, I say I'm between where I was trying to pass, you know what I mean? And I couldn't move, you know what I mean? Because she was very strong. And my mother, right, like I say, and my mother was in the backyard, you know what I mean? And she would see what's going on. But once again, she made it look as if it was a joke, correct? And I was wondering, you know what I mean, what was going on? But then again, I just thought of, I didn't know exactly what was happening. So then, okay, so basically, oh, another thing I want to add. My daughter, I have a daughter who's now 24. And when she was a baby, a child, she was molested by her cousin's friend. So we would take my daughter by her auntie, correct? And her auntie had had a pair of twins, you know what I mean, boys, you know what I mean, and then she had a younger baby who was younger than my daughter. So we thought it was okay by taking her to play with the other children. Then later, a hernia. My daughter would get a hernia, and we would take her to the doctor. So while and so the doctor, tested her, and they realized that uh, um um something was something was abnormal, you know what I mean, in her area down there, correct? And so years later, we found out that, no, sorry, this happened to my daughter when she was about maybe 5, 6, yeah, about that. But when she was in her teens now, maybe 14, 15, I found out that my daughter was sexually molested by her cousin's neighbor, right? And I had no idea. And I mean, I was extremely mad because I said, well, then how come I only knew this now? Then on that same day when that came out, you know what I found out? My daughter's aunt was sexually molesting her when she was a child coming up, right? And I was wondering, hold on, how come I'm hearing this now? But then what I found out was that the same twin boys who were cousins for my daughter, they and their neighbor were sexually abusing my daughter's auntie. So sexual, you know what I mean, abuse, right, among minors, you know what I mean, was a lot, you know what I mean, in the family, you know what I mean, and a lot of things came out, you know what I mean. I was extremely angry, you know what I mean. I just wanted to add that. No, after I got saved, you know what I mean, and God brought me into the ministry of deliverance and inner healing, I have done a lot of research about rape, yeah, and things, you know what I mean. Like, okay, sorry. I did a lot of research about perversion in general, correct? And what I found out was that as it pertains to adults interfering with young children, oh boy, many people might not understand what I'm going to say because it's from a spiritual aspect, correct? No, there's a okay, sorry. In general, worldwide, when an adult interferes sexually with a, like with a child, it's called what? Like say, it's called pedophilia, correct? Pedophilia. So now I found out that there is a spirit of pedophilia that influences people like this to be attracted towards young children, correct? And so it's a spirit. Okay, then it's a spirit. Just like you have the spirit of anger, you know what I mean, and things like that. You know what I mean? Okay, here what? It's natural to be angry, but when it's excessive and something takes you over and like you commit murder, then that's something else. You know what I mean? That's spiritual. You know what I mean? That's a spirit of anger, right? And there are a lot of other spirits that are perverted, correct? So now what happened as it pertains to the woman who, like say, who tried or like say molested me? What had happened was that I was becoming an adolescent, you know what I mean? When she attacked me. And so she saw me as maybe a young boy, you know what I mean? And maybe she thought that she could have you know what I mean, maybe did something with me, right? But then I fought, you know what I mean? And so she didn't really get the opportunity to go as far as she could have, you know, I said, or that she would have. After my research, I understood and I realized that chances are this lady who attacked me, chances are she was molested by someone when she was also young, right? And what happens is that spirit of pedophilia, correct? Listen to me carefully. Normally, there's something called the transference of a spirit, right? Like say if you transfer like a sickness, you know what I mean, like a common cold or COVID, you know what I mean, get transferred from one person to the other. Spirits also transfer. So you would find a lot of times in these cases, people who are have the spirit of pedophilia, they got it from someone else, correct? And then now these spirits, their objective is to pass on to other people. So then people who got molested, you find that they molest others and the transfer of spirits goes to that person. And the cycle continues over and over and over again. Right, I mean, so then now after I understood the spiritual aspect, right, I mean, and I'm learning, oh, I am learning so much from these, yeah, sorry, and I mean from everyone here. So now I'm learning of the natural side of it, I mean, how we could protect children, but now I'm just sharing with you, sorry, like I say, I'm just sharing with you the spiritual aspect. No, those people who are survivors of these attacks, let me share something with you. There's a spirit called a soul tie spirit, okay? And this soul tie spirit, like I said, I was looking at Francois' book. It's called Stolen Innocence, correct? And there's a verse in the scripture in the Bible that says the thief comes to steal, kill, and to destroy. So he steals. Okay, then so the devil comes to steal. You know what I mean? Your peace, your innocence. You know what I mean? He comes to steal, and he sends spirits out into the world, you know what I mean, to commit all kind of heinous crimes. Now, I heard some panelists spoke earlier, and I could see in general, people don't understand what is happening. Why could a child get molested or raped, and you tell an adult, you know what I mean, and they said that she's been doing that since she's been 2, you know what I mean? And you wonder, how can somebody with a right mind say something like that, right? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. And the thing is, the reason why it doesn't make sense is because it's spiritual. You can't understand it with your natural human mind, correct? Because it's a spirit, right? It's a spirit. And so, um, and so, oh boy, I have so much to say, but like I say, I have to keep it short. But all I have to say now, right? I mean, that is my testimony. I mean, but I just want to add with you, like say, from the spiritual aspect, and what we're speaking about here, I guarantee you, if you got everybody from every country in this world, the same thing happens over and over. It doesn't matter. And the reason why things happen like this all over the world is that cultural, is not the society, is because it's spiritual. These spirits operate all over the world. It doesn't care your color, your social class, your status. These spirits. No, also I heard somebody say about getting law enforcement involved and try to construct laws and things like that. But what you would find is that another reason why things like these are hush hush is because a lot of those people, the politicians or maybe the attorneys or people in law enforcement, they also might have a spirit of pedophilia. A lot of these people that are in very high positions, they have a spirit of pedophilia themselves. So then they have to try to push it onto the table, you know what I mean, to try and avoid, because if they get caught in this act, they will be persecuted by the same laws that they put in the books, right? You know what I mean? And so you have to be very careful about that. So what happens is that okay, now for example, thank you, Father God. I have a church sister. Listen to me carefully. I was just speaking to her the other day. She's from the island of Guyana. She was molested by her auntie's boyfriend, correct? Many, many times, right? And she tried to run away. And her auntie came and got her and beat her and brought her back, correct? Her sister was molested by the same person. Guess what? The person was a corporal in the force, in the police force. So even though they went and filed a complaint against this gentleman, his colleagues tried to hide and hush hush because he was a member of the force himself. Correct? You know what I mean? So then what you find is that when you get opposition as it pertains to things like these, is because many people in position of influence to make changes in, sorry, like say, in how things are handled, they also have those spirits of as well, and they are also guilty of the same crimes. So when you find a blockage that things doesn't make sense, you know what I mean, and why they don't do this and why, is because there's a possibility that these people are involved in those crimes as well. Once again, Francois, thank you for the opportunity. This is a great panel. I think we have to do this more often. This is fantastic. I am learning so much, and I have a lot more to learn. So people, thank you very much. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gordon, and for even sharing the background and also the spiritual part of it. because somebody can't just get up and do it like that. And one of the things I remembered what my mom said to me, that one of the molesters, he was not only molesting his own children but also raping them.
Correct.
And the wife filed police, stuff on him and all of that, and he had to keep far. But that didn't stop him. He then traveled to another country and he thought he could get away. But then, they said what God said, revenge is his, he will repay.
Yes,
It may
correct.
sound it may sound bad, but the country that he went into, when he did what he was doing here, what he did to me and did to his children and all of that, they gave him jungle justice.
Yes.
And that's exactly how he got his end. It is really ridiculous. I'm going, before I call on Mr. Robert, it is we going to I'm gonna ask if we can stay for an extra 15 minutes. Just an extra 15 minutes, and so we want persons to ask questions, because we don't want to leave anyone hanging. Those I Before anybody leave, I want to say thank you for those of you who have stayed. I really appreciate you that you've come out to listen, and be free to you can leave your questions in the chat. If you have to leave, that's no problem. My team and I, we will see the questions and we'll read them. But if you have to leave, we understand and we appreciate. It's a heavy topic, and we want to ensure that each of you, especially the audience, get your questions answered, and be well satisfied at the end of the day. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to Robert, and Robert, you posted something which is very norm seemingly among men, that when a woman molests them, they see it as a rite of passage. Now I'm going to read something from you from a gentleman who spoke about this rite of passage. And this is what he said. There's a disturbing and harmful narrative that exists in many societies today. One that says when a young boy is raped or molested by an older woman, it's somehow a rite of passage into manhood. This idea is not only wrong, it's deeply damaging. I want to be clear from the start. I do not agree with this mindset. Abuse is abuse, no matter the gender of the victim or the perpetrator. Far too often, when a boy opens up about being sexually assaulted by a woman, especially an older one, the reaction isn't sympathy or outrage. It's laughter, praise, or even envy. People say things like, he's lucky, or where was she when I was that age? These comments may seem like jokes, but they normalize trauma and silence victims. They send a message that boys don't get abused, they get initiated. That couldn't be further from the truth. Sexual abuse robs children, boys and girls alike, of their innocence, safety, and trust. It causes deep emotional, psychological, and sometimes physical harms. Boys who experience abuse may suffer in silence, ashamed or afraid to speak out because society has told them they should feel proud of what happened. This kind of toxic thinking forces boys to bury their trauma, which can lead to depression, anxiety, substance abuse, difficulty forming relationships, and even suicide. One of the reasons this myth persists is because of outdated ideas about masculinity. Boys are taught from a young age that they must be tough, dominant, and always ready for sex. So when they're taken advantage of, people wrongly assume they wanted it or that they should have fought back. But just like any other victim of abuse, boys can be manipulated, threatened, and overpowered. Their pain is real and it deserves to be acknowledged and addressed. We must start changing the narrative. We must teach our communities that boys are not immune to abuse. We must create safe spaces for them to speak up, be heard, be believed. This starts with education, challenging harmful stereotypes, listening to survivors without judgment, and holding all abusers accountable, regardless of gender. I speak on this not just to express my disagreement with the idea that such abuse is a rite of passage, but to call for a shift in how we think, talk and act. Every child deserves protection. Every survivor deserves healing, and every voice deserves to be heard without mockery or dismissal. Let's stop romanticizing abuse. Let's stop excusing female predators. Let's stop silencing our boys. Robert Gibson, you're a book author. You've just heard this. And let me hear your reaction about being a rite of passage and how can you guide anyone who will want to write this story about their encounters.
All right. Well, first, again, let me just say thank you for the panel, just like everybody else. This has been an amazing experience. I really didn't expect the panel to be as big as it is, but it is a topic that really needed to be discussed. As Gordon mentioned, I mentioned it listening to him talking about the rite of passage because it as a youngster you feel as though you need to know. Let's be real. Society wants men to know what they're doing in the bedroom. Women are the virginal ones. Women are the virginal ones. The men gotta know what they're doing. Long story short. So you coming in as a man or as a male figure, the female is going to want you to know what they're doing. How are you going to know? The only way you can know is if you've been taught, and you can get taught by having somebody older than you showing you the ropes. And that is what is romanticized in the culture. And it's not just Caribbean culture, it is worldwide. And that is why it's a rite of passage. Because or that's why it's seen as a rite of passage. Because when you then start your sexual journey and you do not know what you are doing, the females, especially now in this day of social media and you are decimated in the group chat. Let's be real. You are decimated in the group chat. You obviously don't know because you are not in the group chat. That's a group chat of women. But the women gonna come in and gonna decimate the men. And so he know he doing, he this and next and the third. And it just makes everything continue. Because then when you realize that you are decimated, then you try to learn so that the next time you are seen as the man. So it is a bit of both, and I'm very sad that it is that way. And the same way that you said what do you need to do to explore and express, to tell people about it. I don't know if Ridley, sorry if I pronounced her name wrong, and all the other survivors. I am here because I am the editor of Francois' book. And we came to the conclusion when we spoke about it 3-4 years ago, there was a story that needed to be told. I am not only an author, but as my bio says, I am the owner of a publishing company, and this book is one of the books that we helped to put out. So I heard that other people are doing their own memoirs, and that is one of the ways that this information spreads, by people being brave and telling their stories and being in a position to field the ramifications of telling those stories. If you get what I'm saying, you may get pushback. You're gonna get pushback, but you have to be brave to tell the stories and brave to continue to push. So we've been here a while. I'm not gonna spend much time, but I will say to each and every one of you who's here, to each and every one of the survivors, so to Francoise herself, this has been amazing. You need to keep doing it. For those who are
writing their own memoirs. If there's any information that you need, or if you want someone to help you get through moving from putting it from up here in your mind out onto the world, give me a shout and we can probably work on that with you. But again, because the information needs to get out, and situations like this, panels like this, platforms like this need to happen more often. And so I mean, like when I spoke to Francoise and they said, book is out, she has so much great ideas. It's like then she's like, oh, she want to put it in Spanish, she want to do it and this is exactly what is necessary. People who have gone through it have to pick up the mantle, to use those spiritual terms, and then and push past the pain to show people that this is wrong. And that's what's necessary. So my job is here as a facilitator of that, right? I am not a survivor myself, but I know people who are. And listening to their stories is just as heartbreaking as hearing these stories from here. So yeah, I'll pause now. I'll stop now because I know somebody had their hand up before we started to speak, and
Yes,
there have to be other people who want to talk. So
sure. Thank
yeah.
you so much, Robert. And you can share your information in the chat that persons can reach you. And this is now the Q&A. I do want you, the audience, to ask your questions, and I'm glad that you remain. Ask the questions to all professionals, please, and go. Don't be afraid at all to ask your questions. The guests that are here to answer. I saw the hand of Angela Brown. I know her hand was up earlier before, and did I scroll across to? Okay, Angela Brown, I see you're still there. You have your question.
I have what happened. A short story. My sister, who was born with cerebral palsy and developmentally delayed, she was being taken to school by taxi, and we only found out from the teacher that there was something inappropriate happening with the taxi driver, and because my sister would tell the teacher about her adventures where he took her to his home, and he obviously that's allowed. He took her to school. He's supposed to take her to school and pick her up and take her home, but he took her sometimes to his home, and she mentioned it to the teacher, and that's how we were alerted that something inappropriate was going on, and only to find out that she was also being being molested by a family member, a very close family member. All this came out when this CPS came and did their investigation. So my question was, how do you teach a child that with developmentally delayed, and you try to teach her about, people are not everybody is nice, people are the good and bad. Like my sister, she smiled at everybody. She said hi to everybody, no matter who you are. You could look like the grumpiest person, she would say hi, and she was always smiling. And she took everything as simple. And I think the taxi driver obviously took advantage of that. And so my sister is no longer with us because she passed away at 34. But my question is, how would you deal with a situation like that, like to teach her that things like this is wrong, and then when a person tells you to keep a secret, like he's taking you to his house, how would you teach her that, or teach a child that?
Thank you so much. I don't know if Ridi or Ranjit or Crystal or Yolanda, which one of you would want to take this? It's a really good question.
I can go ahead.
Go right ahead.
I think the best way to teach a child is through dolls and through demonstrating it on the dolls that about good touch and bad touch. And that's how you can inculcate these things and teach these things to the children by demonstration and visually showing them.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So we have to teach them visually the good touch and the bad touch. Okay. All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
very important.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's see. Sandra, do you have any question that you'd like to ask or something you would like to add? Or go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. This was a very, very rich conversation. And you've just started with the connections that can be powerfully put together to make a change. So I would like to see all your key people that are ready to jump in there, create the whole an educational program that needs to be out to everyone. I think there's you've got this recording as well. You could put together some of the shorter answers, if you will, to make it into or break it into segments so that there's power to be used, because you don't want to lose the energy and the passion that was in this room today. So I just want to say congratulations to everyone. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we are at 6:13 and we do we have anybody with any question? If not, I'm going to ask each of our panelists I think there's something in the chat. Let me see here. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask each of our panelists, I'm going to ask our Zoom master to just pin all of us and each of you give your wrap up. Give you 2 minutes. Thank you. Wrap up in 2 minutes. And I will start, well, from my screen, I'm not sure from the Zoom host what she's seeing, but I know from my screen, I'm seeing Riddy and then Robert, and then Mr. Matthew, Mr. Finch, Joyce, and Yolanda and Crystal. Okay. All right. So let's start with Riddy. You give your 2 minutes wrap up. Thank you as we close off.
Thank you, Bovin, for having me here. And it was really an honor to be here. I wouldn't be courageous enough to open up about this and talk about this so confidently. I'm really thankful. And you really gave me an important topic for my memoir. I really never thought that I'll add that. And now I think I will, and I definitely will. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Iron sharpen iron. That is my belief. That is my belief. I'm really happy that you've also come away with something to take back with you. Next, I have Mr. Robert Gibson.
All right. Well, first, once again, I was just saying this has been a very powerful message, a very powerful panel, a very emotive conversation. I hope to hear from Riddy. I hope to hear from each of you who is writing. For sure, I definitely want to work with you on those things. But again, whether you write, whether you in whatever way you want to speak out, you really need to speak out, because it is something that needs to there are people who need to hear your voice. And so again, thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to next time.
Thank you so much, Robert. And next I have Joyce Thomas. Go right ahead.
Well, I'm grateful I was here today. This is like a very organic connect. I thought it was going to be Ridhi and Ranjit who were going to speak, but there were a lot of things that just off the cuff for me. What happens in these kind of things? Why am I grateful is sometimes we sweep things under the carpet. We try to forget about it. So there are moments like this that we come up and speak up. When emotionally, when we say it, we do feel it. I would like to really wrap by saying thank you for all the information and for being vulnerable, for being strong, to being able to speak in a forum like this. We were close to about 37, 38 people. And I'm grateful for this because it's like waking up a sleeping lion. You come out with so many things, and where are we going to go next? So I would like to leave you all with a thought: stay strong, speak the minute it happens. Law and others come after. So I think the family is the unit where we have to stay close, have good friends where we can share whatever happens to us. Thank you very much, and indeed honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Next, I have Yolanda, Mrs. Yolanda Esquire, Harris Esquire. You're muted, Yolanda. Yes, you're muted. You're still muted, Yolanda. You need to unmute. You're still, okay. You're still muted. It's still showing that you're muted.
Sorry about that. I've got it now.
Right.
And never mind. Let me just say that I think that this was a very important conversation to be had. We've heard from real survivors. We've heard from people who have been exposed to multiple challenges with communication. That last example about the young lady in the taxi is a very common thing in my current work with the New York State Justice Center, where we try to protect vulnerable adults from exploitation of all sorts, financial and otherwise, sexual and otherwise. We can talk about that another time. I sincerely hope that this is the start of the discussions and that these discussions will continue, hopefully with other people as well as members of this panel. I'm glad I was able to participate. We all have stories, whether we experienced it firsthand or we know of others in our immediate family who were sexually abused. And unfortunately, in my case, I have a very close family member who was, and it has devastated her life. And she writes poetry and different things, and I've been working with her, and I think that she will get some closure when she's able to publish her stories and tell them to other people, because she's been carrying this burden for a long time. This is a real thing. It devastates families. It has intergenerational impact. She was unable to parent her two children because of her abuse as a child and as a young adult. Once you've been a victim of sex abuse, I hate to say it, but it's easier for it to repeat, especially if you weren't able to tell your story and be believed. So I know there's a lot of work to be done in this area, a lot. Human sexuality is very complex. Its impacts on us we don't even understand all of it. So yes, we try to use the law, and in my own small way, we try to use the law to get justice for victims. But does that really cure the psychological impact that has already been done? That's a whole other area. So thank you so much, Francoise, for having the courage to put together a panel like this. And I hope that these discussions will continue and the discussions will turn into real action steps to help our different communities address this real problem. That's what my hope is. And thank you all. It was a real pleasure in understand how I'm using this word to hear people who care about this issue talk about this issue, because it's usually hidden. It's kept beneath the surface too often. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. Thank you. I'm going to call on, I think I saw it was Mr. Matthew. Yes, Mr. Matthew.
Yes, good. A pleasant good day to everyone. Yes, I'm just going to echo what each person said. It's indeed was very timely, very powerful. I learned so much. And I just want to encourage each and every person. We communicate. Somebody typed in the chat. Community is very important, and we need each other. And I think stakeholders need to communicate as well. I think all this is very important. Even when we notice subtle differences, we need to report them. And I'm really, really inspired. I've learned so much, and I think this needs to continue. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthew. And then I have Mr. Gordon Finch.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh. Francois, I want to thank you so very much for this panel. This was outstanding. I learned a lot, and there's a lot more that I can learn. But when you started, but when the first person started the wrap up, I got a download into my spirit. This information needs to go worldwide. I think that it might be wise if you create social media platforms where say where these videos, testimonies, certain people with testimonies, once they have the courage, they can post their testimonies, and then we can get advice from from different experts, because trust me, I have learned a lot, and there's a lot more to be learned. So please, I just want everyone, just like I said earlier, just to continue with the energy. But if we don't continue this, then I believe that it will just die. So I strongly believe that we should create some social media platforms where people with testimonies can share their testimonies, and then people with advice, can also share, any advice. Yes, and we take it from there. So once again, thank you everyone, and I pray that we have this panel again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gordon. And last but not least, I have our trauma expert, definitely. Our trauma, you wrap it all up. Wrap it all up.
Nice. So I want to first of all thank you, Miss Bowen, for the platform to come and share and listen to all of us here today. What I would like to share as we are about to exit is that as individuals who would have gone through these traumatic incidences, to be true to yourself, meaning you have to understand that this is the situation that has occurred, and these are the feelings that has occurred, and these are things that from the time you would have experienced these things, and you would have come to the realization that this is what happened. This is your step now for healing to take place. So do not stay in that mode where you ignore what would have happened before, and you don't take care of the emotions and the feelings that comes up from time to time. But take note of it, realize this is what happened, this is what occurred, and it would have caused me to think this way in a negative manner. It would have caused me to behave this way in a negative manner, and start to take charge of your life. Don't give the perpetrator that charge. You start to take charge of your life and go through that healing journey. Healing is not just a one step, it is a journey until you pass on this earth. So don't expect healing to just be, okay, I went to gain help and I got the help that I need and leave it right there. But it's something that you need to keep moving forward with. So as one level of healing passes, there's another layer that needs to be healed. So that's just my encouragement. Take ownership as to what happened, but in taking ownership, you take back your life and move on with the healing process. That's the end for me here.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And thanks to each and every one of you for taking the time out on this beautiful Sunday, June 22nd, to be here with us, to learn from us, to hear our stories. I've been on a lengthy sick leave since May the 14th. And I still mean that I want to have this event to happen. We have too many lives that are out there that are struggling. And God right now wants to heal lives, save lives, and deliver lives. And I said I wasn't going to wait until I come off of sick leave next month, July, to do the event. I'm like, you know what? My brain is still working. I can still use it for his honor and glory while on the sick bed and do this. I really appreciate all of you. I really appreciate and we will have a part 2, but not when I'm on sick leave. Let's wait till after. We will have a part 2, and I'm going to give you a heads up. We're going to focus specifically on parents and guardians. Parents and guardians, because a lot of them we have recognized, and a nurse said this to me, that they are well aware what is happening and refuse to say something. Sometimes the woman is the main breadwinner, not the man, but she wants to keep the man and keep the man above the child. Oh, yeah. So we have a part 2 coming. I saw the chat. We're going to have a part 2. We're going to plan it out, and we will share more in time to come. Because then you're asking the question, the Bible say, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long, that it may be well with thee. But then the Bible went on to say, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. So the question is, should children still honor their parents who rape them, who molest them, who sodomize them, who abuse them, who assault them? Thank you for coming. Stay tuned for part 2. Thank you and good night.
Good night.